A long one, right?
I don't know. I don't think it'll be that long.
All right.
Welcome to the Practical Pistol Show. We're here to answer your shooting questions, but not today. Joining Matt and I is Mike Foley. Hello, Mr. Mike.
Hello.
You're not here so much as presidential hopeful Mike Foley, but more as dude who attended the recent in-person USPSA Board of Directors meeting, right?
Why else would anybody attend that meeting unless they were hopeful?
Jesus. Okay, so we've got a lot of questions about it. Of course, Carry Optics is now a provisional division, along with pretty extensive minutes that were released. So I think the reason we wanted you here is to tell us, like, what went on with the meeting, what was your sense of it, that sort of stuff, because I think you can pick up a lot by being in the room at the meeting. And so you were there, and you can tell us more about it. Does that sound cool?
Absolutely.
Okay, so first, this was your first in-person board meeting?
Yes.
What did you think of it? Like, did it seem, productive and...
Having sat on boards for organizations just like USPSA with the same struggles as USPSA, I was surprised at how antiquated and behind the curve we are in the way that we make decisions and the way that we communicate with one another, and really how the board meeting was run. Not to be critical of all the individuals in there, but it was less productive than it should have been.
Okay, well, how long did it last?
A day and a half.
And, I mean, looking over the minutes, it seems like there was a fair amount of stuff discussed. I don't know if I get a day and a half out of it, but it looks like there was a lot of sort of productive talks going on.
There were, one of the things that was in the minutes that I'll hit on is there was a discussion about production division. And there's some spirit.
Right, we'll talk about that a lot towards the end. We'll save that because Hopkins will get all. If you start now, he'll get all crazy, and then we won't get anything done.
So true, so true.
That's true.
I think the biggest takeaway for me is being hit in the face with something that we've all presumed, and that is that our organization is not set up to move at the speed of business. And a lot of times we don't get anywhere because we're too slow, and we're not driving our markets proactively, but we're rather reacting to everything. So we're always surprised, it seems. And this board, in their defense, have a priority of trying to make sending in activity worth more than the check that comes with it, which is kind of a mission, that I'm going to have. But they also tend to not want to take anything away from the membership that the membership already has, which is when we get into these division discussions, one of the things that makes it difficult for them to follow the lead of some members and simply make decisions, because they don't want to make a pistol that you already have antiquated or worthless or not able to play in the game in some place that makes sense. They never seem to want to take anything away. So I think they have the members' best interest at heart. It's the execution that appears to be a little bit sloppy. I felt like they were all there to make the right decisions, and I didn't get the feeling that anybody in that room wants to steer the organization into an iceberg or drive it off a cliff. They're all there to try to better it. Whether or not we're being effective at that is kind of obvious.
Okay, well, I want to ask about a couple items that were amended and stuck on the minutes, just to kind of see what those things were all about. One thing that jumped out at me was the policy on marijuana use. I mean, I get banning the use of or being under the influence of marijuana, but why? Was there some impetus behind that, or some reason like, hey, we need to ban marijuana use? Were people getting high at matches or something?
No, that actually was born out of, and the opening words for that discussion were, because it's now legal in so many states, perhaps we should address marijuana use.
So, well, that sounds proactive, right?
It's probably not a bad idea to have some kind of policy about it.
Absolutely. On the priority list, I'd put that, somewhere around 443rd. But yeah, I don't see anything wrong with it.
Okay, and the ballot distribution discussion. Do you recall what that was about?
No one in the room knew exactly when the ballots would be mailed or how they came up with the list of eligible voters.
Wait,
And
whoa. What do you
yeah.
mean eligible voters?
I got a better question. What do you mean no one in the room? The executive director and the president were there.
No one. The question came up: when exactly the ballots go out to the membership, and when was the list provided to them of eligible members? Now, remember, to be eligible, you have to have been a member on May the 1st of the year of the election,
Yep.
And you have to currently be a member in good standing when the list is provided to the accounting firm that holds the election. And there were just a lot of questions about the process, and evidently there's an employee at HQ who handles it, and so no one else was in the know. And so they asked for full reporting on that. They also asked that one of the committees come up with a way to let the membership know exactly how that process works and maybe even audit it before the next election.
Oh,
Well, just something to add on to that. I know there is no way to get a replacement ballot if it's lost or something. I think that should be another task. I don't know if it's as far down as the marijuana use policy.
No, I'd say that's arguably way more important than the marijuana use policy.
I think it is too. Yeah.
Whether I am your next president or not, I want every member of this organization to have the chance to vote.
Well, what about the idiots?
Well, if we rule them out, I don't think that we'll ever get anybody to vote in this election. So now, honestly, I want everybody to vote, and I'd rather everyone be informed and vote. And so, if you're not informed, throw it in the trash.
Shouldn't you just check off the box on there, whoever's name you like the best, or whoever name you know?
Yeah, well, that might be okay in picking a horse race, but I don't see that as a viable way to manage the future of our organization by just, picking the guy whose name you've heard the most, or the guy who hasn't had to campaign because he's been around for 20 years.
Damn, you're taking shots at people.
Yeah, well, he's my bro and everything, but golly gee.
All right. If anyone's curious, I'll put a copy of these minutes in the show notes on the YouTube channel. So if you want to take a look at the minutes, go ahead. I don't think there's a lot interesting in there because I'm going to ask about the interesting stuff. All right. In the agenda, there's something about Steel Challenge discussion. What was that all about?
There was a very brief and vague Steel Challenge discussion, and the board somehow reinforced its intent to make a success out of Steel Challenge, acknowledging that that we as an organization have not done well with it. I think it's been somewhat of a travesty, and they made the intent, the recommitment, to continue forward rather than to consider perhaps putting it up for sale or shelving it or whatever.
Okay. All right, and the discussion of area finances is the last thing I want to ask about before we get to the really juicy stuff. What's going on there?
Well, there are in section 11.2 of the bylaws, and I have it here in front of me. I'm going to look away at it. The use of funds for area matches are supposed to be reported on by the area directors, and they are supposed to predominantly be used to reward the competitors in the form of prizes and the quality of the match. However, different areas operate different ways, and the discussion was, can an area become a separate entity? Can it become its own nonprofit organization for tax purposes? Can it have money in its bank account without USPSA having access to it? Can it use that money to promote the match? Can it use that money to have in its accounts for the next year's match, or for redistribution to help the sections in the area put on their section match? And so there were some real positive discussions about making sure that we do what's required of us as per the IRS regulations, but also what you could do to make sure that those monies can be used for other positive things if you're not going to give them all back in prizes and so forth. So there's some talk about changing Section 11.2. Obviously, it's not been reworded, not been changed. There's no disposition on it. They do have a bylaws committee, and currently that's the president, Phil Strader, the vice president, Area 3 director, Sherwin Greenfield, and the executive director. Those are the people who are on the bylaws committee. You'll note that there's nobody from outside the board on that committee, which is a common theme in my notes, that all of the standing committees are made up of just different mixes of the same board members. And as much as I respect some of the people in that room, I can't imagine that the 12 of them can be experts on everything from technology to three-gun. And I think we have members who are way more astute in each of these categories than the collective group in the room. And so my opinion would be that we should task committees with a board member or two on them, perhaps an employee of the organization, a member who's a subject matter expert, whether it be accounting, three-gun, steel challenge, a carry optics committee, whatever the committee work is, maybe someone on that committee who's good at research. We've got way too many people who are interested in the success of our organization who are willing to serve, to task the same 12 people with all of this standing committee work.
Jesus Christ, why would you want to be on a committee on top of being on the board?
Exactly.
It's like so much work. Oh. Okay, let's get to the juicy stuff. So there was a production division sort of update that's listed in the minutes. I don't really know what that is.
There was a discussion about production division.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome. Boom. Right?
Exactly.
That was the discussion?
The largest growing division, the third.
We've overtaken open.
Volume.
Isn't that, haven't we?
Pardon?
We've overtaken open, haven't we, with production?
Yeah, a lot of the matches I've been looking at specific match data, production is often second instead of third to either limited or open, depending on the match and the area and so forth. It's always ahead of single stack, revolver, L10. So it's clearly always in the top three, and usually in somewhere second or third.
Okay.
So anyway, the discussion about production. There's this obvious elephant in the room, and you hear this from members at local matches, and you hear this, obviously in a board meeting from the president, that production has become heavy toward the heavier guns.
That's not what I hear at club matches. I'll tell you what I hear. It's like, hey, where can I get one of those 10 folios?
Yeah.
I'm being honest. That's what I hear.
Right. And you tell them that they can't, that there's just
right.
not, manufacturer distribution, and then unless you're really special or really lucky, you're never going to see one, right?
I'll be honest, I actually tell people that a CZ would be easier to get.
It's like the second prettiest girl in the group, right?
Yeah, I don't know, maybe.
CZ's a fine gun, isn't it, Hopkins?
Yes.
No, it's a good gun.
It's awesome.
I'm not dumping on it.
I have two shadows. I'm with you.
Well, you'd need to have two. You need a backup.
Anybody has a backup. That's smart.
That's why I'm being smart. Okay, anyway, go on. So, production guns, there's a problem that some of them are too heavy, and it's too slow to transition them from target to target, right?
Well,
you got to get rid of these light guns.
Is based on perception. And that perception is that the heavier guns have an advantage because of the weight. But there's also a perception that they have an advantage because of their single action trigger after the first pull. Who in this organization are we pandering to? Are we pandering to top shooters? Are we pandering to sponsors? It seems to me that with membership dues being our largest revenue and the activity from level 1 matches being our second largest revenue, and B and C class being our largest classification of members, that it would be important that we think about who's paying our bills and who's doing our work. And when I go to local club matches and I meet B and C class shooters who are members of the organization and ROs and whatever, they don't really care what the top shooters are shooting as much as they shoot a gun that they like, they're brand loyal, something they've already got, perhaps they can't afford to switch. They're not really chasing that, what was the top gun at Nationals. However, there are people who say that that's important to the sponsors.
Well, hold on. So let me back this up. So you've got guys on the board or whatever, they feel there's a perception problem with the division that, let me just paraphrase, Glocks can't be competitive is what the perception is. M&Ps aren't competitive. XDs aren't competitive.
Striker guns, I think, right?
There is someone who brought that data into the room, and I've already called him out online and got caught for calling him out. But yes, either the perception that they can't be competitive is from a certain top shooter, or the perception that they can't be competitive is from the manufacturers themselves. I don't know that echoes the perception of our membership. And I'd just like to hear from the membership on it, rather than make decisions based on who's got the loudest voice or on who's complaining. Why don't we just solve this once and for all, and let's ask the members what they want?
Well, here's a question: what would they do about it? What's to be done if striker-fired guns aren't competitive?
Well, let's buy into that for a moment and say, okay, well, what are your options? If you talk about splitting that into 2 divisions and have 2 production divisions, then you're up to that. Now we have too many divisions, and we're trying to give everybody a special award for just showing up, and you know all the internet arguments that you read about it. So the board was real quick not to try to change anything for anyone who's already bought a TANFO, already bought a CZ. So they're not trying to take anything away. But they did. There was a motion and a second, and that motion failed. And it's in the minutes, and that motion was to allow guns up to 56 ounces in production, as long as they're on the list and meet the production criteria. Otherwise, no more specific weight per model.
Here's my question for you, Mike. So guns are too heavy in production. So the solution is to raise the weight limit?
The argument for that was that if you added tungsten guide rods and you filled the backstrap channel with lead on a Glock, for example, that you could make that gun heavier and therefore erase the advantage perception of weight.
Mike, you're a pretty astute guy. What do you think of this?
Okay, Mike Foley personally, not a candidate, not a guy.
Yeah, what do you think?
I think that's the biggest bunch of crap in the world. I've got Glocks, Walthers, CZs. Now, I'm only a 4 or 5 division master here, but I've got all those guns down in the safe. And if I take them to any particular match, I don't shoot them any differently. I get that some people might like a heavier gun, some people might like a lighter gun. Everybody's got their own opinion. But as far as that goes, I don't perceive that as an issue. Now,
so what this would essentially do, so it instead of, what's a Glock 34, like 27 ounces?
Okay.
I think. And then, so they could add as much weight, they could add to that gun as much weight as they wanted, up to 56 ounces? Is that the...
But recall the production rules say that you cannot...
Yeah, you can't add more than 2.
...visible changes. And so currently it's, it's plus 2 ounces. There was some talk about raising it to 4. There was some talk about going with a maximum of 56. That was the motion that failed. And these were all well-intended things based on perception. However, I'd rather base these decisions on hard data and input from the membership. If we were good at surveying our members and making data-informed decisions, then we wouldn't have to guess, and we wouldn't have to run it by 12 guys who may or may not be shooting this division, may or may not be plugged into what's going on in all the different markets, and we wouldn't find ourselves guessing and then delivering a substandard product or creating our own mass hysteria.
Well, when you said there's a certain top shooters have this perception or something, like, I gotta wonder what the hell you're talking about. I mean, I remember it wasn't long ago when I was shooting a double action gun that was heavier than most of the guns people were shooting, and I was made fun of relentlessly for that.
Yeah, the thing I got to get is what numbers are they talking about? Yeah, Nationals has switched over to a double action gun being the number one.
For the
First time in what, 15 years?
That's
I mean,
right.
that's not what I'd say is a fundamental change in the.
Well, but Matt, you got to remember, it's not so long ago that it was self-evidently true to people that it was stupid to shoot a double action gun.
Yeah, right when I got into the sport, I thought it didn't make sense to shoot it.
Well,
that was only back in 2008. That's not that long ago.
Yeah, that was Springfield and Glock's claim to fame, is that the trigger's the same every time. You don't have that horrible double action first pull, and so they were selling against this feature that now they're claiming is an advantage today.
Wait, so you're saying it's coming from Springfield and Smith?
I personally haven't talked to Springfield or Smith or Sig, but there was the hint or the idea or the outright statement that they were going to pull some of their sponsorship and that they were less interested in USPSA because of that.
Well,
this is out in the minutes. Phil's made a statement on it. He's quoted me twice on it. So obviously it's out there. Here's the deal. I really don't care which way we go on this. Whatever my opinion is doesn't matter. I gave my opinion a few minutes ago, but it's really what the membership wants and what makes sense for the organization. And I'm a little bit tired of this this sentiment that I read in certain people in leadership, that the members don't know what's best for the organization. This is our organization. We're the ones putting on matches on the weekends. We're the ones shooting matches and having fun. We're the people who are paying our $40, and we really need to be heard, and we need to be heard collectively rather than whatever these perceptions are, whether they come from manufacturers, whether they come from our president, whether they come from someone who makes a presentation in the room. Without any hard data, we're just guessing.
Well, Mike, I mean, the hard data you have is the attendance numbers, right? I mean, to be honest, lots of people are showing up to shoot production.
Absolutely.
So why would they want to fuck with that? I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, production itself isn't broken, but there are people, and let's not just blame this on Phil, and let's not just blame this on Glock. I've had people walk up to me at club matches and ask me what I think about this very issue. So there are people who have this perception. If I know them very well, I'll say to them, look, the lack of you having this equipment versus that equipment or is not what's holding you back. What's holding you back is the way you pull the trigger. I mean, you snatch it like a cat trying to pass a peach pit. And let's get realistic. The other one is you couldn't dope a stage to save your life. It's not got anything to do with whether your gun is 35 ounces or 46 ounces. It really has to do with how you're manipulating your gun. I'm a big fan of do the work and get the results. Now, if you go as far as you think your equipment will let you, and you find another piece of equipment that you like better, buy it. This is a free market.
Well,
that's why we have different brands. I mean, Ford and Chevy, Glock and Springfield, whatever.
What seems odd to me is if the manufacturers are complaining about this, why don't they just build a better gun? I mean, if they feel it's just such an advantage to have the gun be heavier, why don't they just build them that way?
Let me give you the answer to that.
Yeah, that's easy.
And this is a very
I know what you're going to say.
But at 24,000 members, with 11,000 of them who actually had an activity this year, we are not a large enough market to enter any manufacturing endeavor for on the large scale to the large companies that own the law enforcement, military, and self-defense market. We're very small.
I'll tell you what, Mike. We're a big enough deal that CZ builds guns for us. We're a big enough deal that Tanfolio builds guns for us. And we're a big enough deal that Bursa builds guns for us. And, of course, now Grand Power.
Then why do they care who's using our guns?
Yeah.
That's the question.
And if I'm on Team Smith & Wesson, I would just say, well, fuck this M&P garbage. Give me the 5906, and then we'll see what's what. Right? So a lot of them make guns that are fine.
Absolutely, and if you've ever shot one of Randy Lee's 5906s or one of the old Performance Center 5906s, that's a competitive gun. You can be competitive with that.
Well, I think a Glock's a competitive gun. I
Absolutely,
just don't like it as much.
But if you're talking about steel frame guns, a 5906 is not out of the hunt.
So what?
Not the gun that Smith wants to promote. It's not the one that they can easily give 12 of to a match. It's kind of akin to the P09 or P07. You know, I mean, in that regard.
All right, I want to read you. I want to read you part of a post that I just want to read a part of this because Yantola posted this, and he's on the show frequently, and he's a pretty astute dude. He says he sees 3 solutions to this perception problem. Make a gun that more of the very top guys want to shoot. That's number 1. Number 2, pay a top guy enough to shoot what you have, even if they may not really want to, all else equal. Number 3, change the rules to ban other guns. That's what he sees as the 3 solutions here.
Well, that middle solution seems to be, the answer. But, if you're worried about how your gun's performing, get your gun in the hands of a performer.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you, but I don't run a big gun company, so.
Well, yeah, and you were talking about Bursa and Tanfolio and that, 4 guns in the marketplace in a year's time, that's not going to cut it.
4 companies? No, that's companies that give a shit about.
How many Tanfolios actually were sold in the U.S. last year? It's like 4, right?
I don't know. They sell a lot, but not a lot of the competition guns.
Right. Being in the industry, I tried to purchase Tanfolio guns the last 2 years at the SHOT Show with all the buying power in the world, and the way that model seems to be set up is they want you to purchase 100 plastic-framed pink Witnesses to get 1 stock 3.
Well, of course, those are the guns that they want to sell, like any gun company.
Right, absolutely. So that's just like the same argument with Smith & Wesson and the 5906. They don't want to sell 5906s. They want to sell M&Ps. They want to give us M&Ps.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's fine. They can sell what they want, but you don't see other gun companies. You don't see CZ trying to change the rules of the game to make. What's your homo carry guns, Hopkins?
P series.
Yeah. They don't see them trying to shove the P series down our throat. You just smile, of course.
What?
I was talking to Mike. Mike's just sitting there smiling, like, yeah.
The whole argument is based on perception. And I say let's stop basing it on perception. Let's take a good proposal like the one Hopkins had for what he called tactical division.
Tactical, yeah.
Yeah. Or let's take, and I think that's ingenious. Tactical division, 3-gun has tactical optics. There's very little tactical aspect to it. However, guys buy into that. The people who see it on television, they all shoot tactical. And so if we're looking at growing the sport by bringing in people who just happen to have a Glock or an MP or whatever, then let's look at tactical division as Matt laid it out.
I've got a better idea, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's have a new division, and we're going to have optics on it, like tactical division, but we're going to set the weight limit to exclude Tanfolios and CZs. That should solve the problem, right?
For some. And that's the thing. Somebody's going to watch 5 seconds of this podcast, and they're going to say, Foley's for eliminate this division, or Foley's for changing my division. No,
hey, wait, which division are you for eliminating?
I'm for eliminating L10. I'll go on record with that. I'm not running for
Nobody gives a shit what you think, Hopkins.
12 Canadians now hate you, Matt. Thanks.
No,
Go shoot in California. I
all the
don't know. I
Bowen
can't make it
Canadians
good.
I know either have illegal mags that it's easy to change the capacity on, or they store mags in the U.S.
Yeah, well, it's the new Canadians, the ones who started shooting the last year or two that don't know all the old tricks that are hanging on to L10.
Okay, well, whatever. So let's talk about carry optics. So that was approved at the meeting, and I just made a joke about it. What was the sense of, like, everybody voted for it, right?
Yes.
Like, everybody.
Yes.
Would you have voted for it out of curiosity? I mean, granted, you have the gift of hindsight right now.
Actually, I didn't need the gift of hindsight. I sat there when they were making this decision as if I was watching a train wreck, and unable other than a visiting concerned party. And let's just see what I said about that. I made a note about that, and 20 pages of notes, by the way, from the
For a day and a half.
Jesus Christ.
Wow.
And well, anyway, I sat there and I watched this, and you know, I listened to the production division discussion first, where the equipment race was brought out, and that carried over into this carry optics division discussion. And as I watched this happen, I'm thinking the membership is going to have a baby. They're going to have an alien baby when this hits, because nowhere in anything that I heard anyone asking for this division did I hear anyone say, let's exclude the heavy guns from it. So I think we mixed discussions there, and then voted for something that was not based on the membership's cry for the division. And whether you believe...
Well, how much of a cry do you think there really was?
Well, there were I won't say a large number, but there were a marked number of people who talked to me about this at, say, single stack and revolver nationals. There have been people online asking for it for a long time. We all kind of snickered that, you know, that Paul Highland and two other guys wanted it, but that's not the case. There were more people than I would have guessed asking for this division. And so if we have a large group of people who bring us a division proposal, then we should hear it, and we should weigh it out, and we should get the membership to tell us what they think about it. And we should start this thing from an informed position, not from a position of fear of heavy guns. And so rather than make a decision based on two different discussions that were grossly unrelated, and surveying the membership and making a data supported decision and owning the message and implementing it correctly, rather than just, you know, dropping a pile of poo on the membership. And I won't say that it's a wrong solution. They may have got there anyway. I just don't like the way we got there.
All right, here's a question for you. When we're talking about data supported solutions, right?
Right.
I think, like, for me, I think if I was to define a successful division, I'd go look at an area match, and there'd be a bunch of dudes in it, and it'd be kind of an interesting match. There'd be enough heat there that winning at the area match would be meaningful. So you know what I mean? Like, sometimes single stack has that many guys, sometimes not. Usually, I mean, usually the single stack's interesting. Open is pretty much always interesting, right? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So when I wonder how people on the board would, like, how do you measure a successful division, or are they interested in doing that? Because if you start measuring or trying to figure out, like, is this division successful? Is this drawing enough people to it? How do you not look at something like Lim 10 and be like, yeah, that's not working for us, or, you know, whatever?
Well, the key word there is measure, and I didn't see a presentation of any measurable data. That doesn't mean that they didn't provide it to the board members at another point in time when I wasn't, you know, privileged enough to be in the room, but in that board meeting, I saw no data put in front of anyone about the numbers for a division. I saw no data put in front of anyone about the activity in a division. There was just no data to support coming out with the framework for a division and releasing the idea of it to the membership, causing a feeding frenzy of questions, some of which nobody's happy about, some of which I guess there are a few people who've jumped on and said, well, this makes sense, but it would have been nice to have made that decision properly rather than thrown it out there and now, getting eaten alive by sharks.
Where do you see carry optics heading? I mean, it's provisional now, but there's been kind of an outcry. Like, where do you see that? Where do you see that going? If you had to guess,
given that there are 5 manufacturers making guns that still fit this criteria, I think it can't help but have some participation.
Well, of course, some people are going to shoot it.
One thing that will hurt it is the fact that it's provisional, and nobody's going to want to commit to, say, a custom gun for it by milling the slide on a Glock 17 or whatever and putting the optic on it. But if you buy a Glock that's already cut, M&P that's already cut, a SIG that's already cut, FN that's already cut, if you buy any of those guns that already have that removable mounting plate and the optic, and the division goes away in a year, then you're not at a complete loss. You can still sell the pistol. Firearms retain about 80% of their value on the used market. So, I don't know of anybody who gives away their gun if they decide to change divisions or whatever and sell it. And the optics would either have other uses, put it on your rimfire, put it on your tack rifle, or sell the optic, and optics still retain probably 60 or 70% of their value in most cases. So it's not a total loss if the division goes away. The board wanted to put the word provisional in the announcement like 12 times to make sure that everyone knew that this is just something we're trying. It's a trial and error division, and to that I applaud them, because they were really careful not to overcommit the membership's money for equipment for something that would go away without being upfront about it. So I appreciate the intent that the board put into that and the thought that they put into that about our members. That is one place where I feel like the members were represented. But that's a notion, and it didn't require any data to do the right thing there. It was just the right thing to do.
Okay, Mike, I want to read you another post that a guy wrote. It was like, this is one of those things where I normally read posts with this sort of tone, and I'm thinking like, yeah, this is a guy who thinks we faked the moon landing or something. You guys just talking crazy. But I want to get your take on this. You guys are all getting caught in the bullshit that's being spit out by those that created this division. This isn't about eliminating an arms race or bringing back production to be an entry-level division. This is 100% about appeasing Glock, Smith & Wesson, and all the other companies that lost their footing in USPSA when people stopped shooting their guns. What's your reaction to that?
There is some truth to that statement. It falls off at the end for me a little bit, but the truth is...
Well, you don't really believe that people stopped shooting their guns.
No, I don't believe people stopped shooting their guns. I go to club matches and I see more Glocks and M&Ps than anything. However, I do believe that this decision was based on the notion, as delivered to the board by the president, who's in touch with the industry, that the industry is going to pull some of their support. And I don't want the industry to pull their support, but at a certain point, they can't tell us what our game's going to be or influence our decisions with their money any more than any other special interest group can. And so, in my opinion, it's a well-meaning thing, but in the wrong direction. I'd rather us have the game and make it fun. Now, I have an idea that could make everybody happy. The lightweight guns, the heavy guns, the easy-to-get guns, the hard-to-get guns. And that idea is an idea that Springfield Armory used to use for the single-stack classic. And if you've ever shot that, you'll know that they would pay out guns and prizes to the top Springfield shooters. So Springfield donated 20 guns. The top 20 guys who shot the match with a Springfield framed gun would get a Springfield prize. So you might have placed in the top 20 Springfields, but maybe they had to go 80 deep on the competitor list to get there, and those guys were going to get a prize. So to that, I would encourage Smith & Wesson, I would encourage Glock, I would encourage Springfield, I would encourage especially SIG with their new P320.
Especially? You think that gun's an especially big piece of shit, then? Is what you're saying.
No, I just think that they're trying to promote that gun very heavily. and it's their new thing, and they've hitched their cart to it. And from what I'm hearing, if you have one of those, and Bruce Gray's touched it and blessed it and breathed on it, that it's something special.
Negative, sir. I've shot one.
Well, I've only seen the production model, but I read from a lot of the guys who have the gun who are promoting it, and so anyway.
That got the gun for free to promote it.
Let's say that we take the top 5 handgun manufacturers and we convince them that we're going to pay the top Glock, we're going to pay the top CZ, we're going to pay the top Springfield, and we're going to go as many places as they want. Or they can tell us how to award their prize or how to award their sponsorship. I see no problem with giving them alternatives. If their only thing is we have to have the guy who wins the overall match, then I say pick a guy. If you want to sponsor us and sponsor our sport and get involved and give people an incentive to shoot your gun, then let's pay them based on how they place using your gun.
All right. I want to finish up with a question that actually it kind of comes from Manny. So I don't know if you listened to the podcast you did with Manny or if you read his proposal in Frontside. I assume you did both.
I did.
You read it. You read what he wrote in Frontside. He has a proposal about essentially getting business people on the board or requiring some sort of experience in business in order to be on the board. And so I asked him about. I pressed him a little bit on it. I didn't really get too much of an answer about. But he seems to want to put more restrictions on who can be on the board. And you've been to a board meeting. Do you think that sort of thing is a good idea, or do you think there's something wrong with the board? I mean, these are the sort of like really fundamental questions, and I know it's tough for you to say anything without pissing people off, but I think people are curious about this. Is there something wrong?
Well, let's talk about the board and the organization as a whole and answer this question. In my opinion, Manny's litmus test, that, as I recall, was that you own a business or that you manage a business or that you have some executive role in a business or some management or leadership position in another organization to be on the board. And I think it was 2 years or something he threw out. And so I don't care if you've owned the car wash for 2 years or not. The board can only be as good as the information that's being provided to them. They can only be as good as the way their traffic is being directed to the employees and from the employees back to the board. And I feel like that we're a little weak in our communications. So I think everyone on that board would pass Manny's litmus test. So I don't know, what.
Right. Well, we could argue. Let me put it this way: we could argue about what the litmus test should be or what it could be. But I think the fundamental question is, should there be a litmus test? Or why would somebody say there should be a litmus test, right? Like, is there something wrong? Is there a problem that needs fixing? Now, whether or not Manny has the right solution, that's a different question.
Historically, we put the guy who wins the popularity contest on the board, and there are some fine guys sitting on that board. However, look how many races have gone unopposed. We don't have a lot of people stepping up wanting that job. And given the way that we devour everything that they give us that we don't approve of, who could blame them, right?
It sounds like a shit job, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It's uncompensated. It's thankless. Everything you do is going to catch criticism from somebody. If you're too tight-lipped, it looks like you're involved in a conspiracy. If you're too open, then you get involved in all these debates. And a lot of those guys have full-time jobs, and they don't have the willingness or the interest to debate with the rest of us till midnight on the internet or whatever. So it really is a tough job. However, it's been made tougher by having a part-time president. And once we have a full-time president, and if that's me, I'm going to work with my board members. I'm going to work with the executive director of the organization, the employees of the organization. I'm going to direct the traffic. I'm going to ride herd on the projects. We're going to get our organization in shape, and we're going to start communicating better with one another, and we're going to start making informed decisions. And if I have to be the guy who does the research or tasks the committees or taps people out to give me everything they can, or if we have to do a survey once a month, we will do we will get the information and we will enact for the best of the organization for the future and the best wishes of the members. It's really not that hard. It's something that I do every day for the company that I work for. It's something that I've done for other nonprofits, and it's something that I'm really proud of the results that I've driven. And I'm just a dumb old country boy from southeastern Kentucky. I don't really think that I'm anything special. But what I am is willing to roll up my sleeves and go to work, talk to people, and direct the traffic to and from the board and the employees, and do it every day. And, you know, whether or not someone's owned a car wash or not doesn't really play into this discussion.
So I think what you're saying is you think that there's some issues with the board, but you think that there's solutions other than sort of being more restrictive about who gets on there.
I don't think that we should put any restrictions. I think our membership elects our board members, and then they bitch about everything they do. And so in this particular case,
they bitch about like 5% of the stuff the board does. 95% they're oblivious to.
Yeah, well, they look for one drop of blood in the water to crucify the board and condemn the organization. And the organization is far from dead. We have some issues, but we're still selling out matches. We're still having fun. People are still shooting. Yes, we are detached from the top level to the club level, and we need to fix that. And all of these things can be fixed with better communication, better analytics, and being able to move at the speed of business and having someone dedicated to doing the work full-time every day. And that's really what's missing here. It's not that we have a bad board. It's not that we have a good board. It's that we're not doing our work smart.
Okay, well, Mike, we've kept you for like an hour, so this is a really good place to leave it.
Time flies when you're having fun.
You got a fucked up definition of fun. If you're looking for answers to shooting questions, I'm sorry. We didn't really get to that stuff this time. We had to talk about political bullshit. If you do have shooting questions, you want to send them to me, head over to bensteger.com and email them to me. If you want to get in touch with Mike Foley, just buy something from Shooters Connection?
You know, as much as I appreciate that plug, and I'm sure Chuck does too, you can reach me through Mike Foley for USPSA President on Facebook. If you want to send me an email, it's MikeFoleyUSA@gmail.
Right, but I could call Shooters Connection, right? And you'll probably pick up the phone.
You know, there's a great likelihood that I will pick up the phone, but please, let's try to limit the politics.
Call Mike at Shooters Connection to talk about carry optics and your proposal for new divisions. At Hopkins, you can get him at hopkinsshooting.com. And you, oh man, we didn't get to it. We didn't really talk about it, but you have your proposal for.
We can do another podcast on that.
A whole other podcast on tactical face shooting division.
Yes,
Oh
easily.